Today, I'm speaking with Karen. She tells me of the journey she took before she was pregnant. She started to heal her inner child, nourish her body through eating animal and traditional foods, and really took this preconception time that she was about to go on very seriously. Through her experiences of healing and knowledge, Karen was opened up to the idea of wild pregnancy and free birthing. The empowerment of that concept really stuck with Karen and led her into another journey of stepping into her power for pregnancy and birth. Take a good listen to this first time mom's expansive ways of healing herself and gaining insightful information about her body through seeking knowledge, holding her connection to God, and trusting herself to have the outcome that she wanted. Hello, Karen. Thank you so much for being here on the Freebirthing in Color podcast and in this movement. I'm so grateful that you are going to share your time with us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, I'm like I said, I was speaking to you before, saying I'm very excited to have you here and share your stories because it's just amplifying and letting other women know that free birth in, the communities and in all places of the world is possible. It doesn't matter where you come from, who you are. And so I'm just going to ask you right away, what is your ancestry and your lineage that you're passing on to your children?
So, yeah, so basically I was born in Guatemala. My mom is full Guatemalan and she basically has like Mayan in her. So
Mm-hmm.
I always resonate really a lot with like the Mayans, and I always like really every time I go to Guatemala, like I just love their culture. I know I was really into it, especially like when I was pregnant, like with the whole baby wearing thing, because
Mm-hmm.
the Mayans always carry their babies on their back. So that's part of that's like my Central American lineage. And then my dad is part Italian, but when I was studying kind of like the history there, it sounds like we were more like from, oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank now. Um, what is that country called? Um, they're kind of like Sicilian, and they had come from uh oh my gosh, I'm like drawing a blank. Well, anyways, some European lineage there.
Okay.
But it's a very, very small part of us. So
Mm-hmm.
if anything, my daughter's maybe like now like 1/16th
Okay.
European, and then the rest of us is very Central American because my husband's also from Central America. So
Okay. Wow. Amazing. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, like I was saying before, it's so nice to know that there are women in Central America birthing in this way because it's not very readily talked about. It's every kind of here and there. And so I love having women from the Central American countries share their stories and get it out there that like, yes, I'm doing it, you can do it. I think it's just such a beautiful way to spread this movement and share this beautiful information of just, coming back into yourself as a woman, birthing your baby free. So,
yeah, absolutely.
yeah. So, let's get right into your story. And where does your motherhood journey begin?
Um, so my motherhood journey, it's like it's interesting because I feel like I went on this like really weird path of where I feel like I've always been a very nurturing person, like even as a kid, like I've always like nurtured like little animals back to health. Like it's always been my thing, is just this
Mm-hmm.
nurturing. And so I remember when I was in college, like I was so obsessed, like my freshman year, with like wanting to get pregnant. Like I was like, oh, I want to have baby. And I was like, and it's funny because at the time I was like praying to God, and I was like, just get me pregnant like you got Mary pregnant, you know? And I was just like wanting to birth, like, I guess the next Messiah. And so it was so weird. I don't know why I was so obsessed with it then. I don't remember like what it ignited me in that time.
Mm.
And then anyway, like years down the line, I ended up meeting my husband. I met him actually while I was on a trip in Costa Rica, and everything happened super fast. Like we like met, then we started talking, like we got engaged like by I think we met in September, we got engaged by November. Um,
Wow, I love
and we were
that.
already like really talking about he was like really talking about having kids, and at the time I was like really excited because I think if anything it was like very romanticized. Like I really
Mm-hmm.
wanted kind of to see him be a dad and see like what our babies would look like.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like in a very like romanticized time. And
Mm.
then yeah, and then I don't know, like it was so weird. Back in 2019, like I had announced my not my pregnancy, announced my engagement. Um, and then something really crazy happened to me, which I feel like was a way into motherhood, honestly, because I fell into like this really bad depression. I was like super confused. My pretty much like my mind was like there were so many like intrinsic thoughts like telling me
Mm.
that I didn't love like my husband slash fiance at the time, that like I should
Mm.
just leave him. And at the time, he kept talking. We were still together, but we were like having plans of getting married. And then, COVID was like a whole mess. So we were divided like from the countries. And
Mm-hmm.
so I was kind of like, I don't know when the next time I'm going to see him, but he kept bringing up kids. And at that time, I was like, well, I don't know if I want to have kids. And I was like, it was weird because I was like, I didn't have any more, there was like no more feeling. It was just so much numbness and so much like just dissociation. And I was kind of
Right.
like, I don't know if I want to have kids. Like I'm so confused right now. Things are so weird, and
Mm-hmm.
things were really odd. And eventually, I did a lot of like healing from all those things. So I was like really wanting to know like why that happened to me, because it came out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was really just like, why did this happen to me? Like, I've never had any of these issues before. And so that brought me into a journey of just healing in general, like a lot of childhood trauma, and like I did a lot of inner
Mm.
child work.
Okay.
And so I feel like that was a really big part of this now. And also because like now as a parent, like I'm really learning like not just to parent my baby, but also doing the whole like inner child and healing that way. So that
Mm-hmm.
was like a very beginning of all that stage of just it was basically at the start of me realizing like, I think a lot of my childhood it was just like like I basically have no memories of a lot of the stuff. So
Okay.
I kind of went back on this like relearning who I was and all these
Mm-hmm.
things. And so basically we ended up getting married. And then at that time, I was like, oh yeah, like I definitely want to wait to have kids because, we just met, we just got married. And I actually had never had like a partner before ever. And so I was really excited because I was like, I finally have a partner, like finally we can like do the partner
Mm.
things and the dating and the traveling and like, all the romanticizing and everything.
Mm.
So I was like, I definitely want to wait to have kids. Um, and so this was back in 2020 when we got married, and then 2021 I started becoming more involved in. So a part of my background is I actually am I used to be in the allopathic medicine. I used to be, or
Oh.
I'm licensed as a physician assistant.
Oh, okay.
So that was like a whole other journey that kind of like
Mm-hmm.
met because when I was in school, like I know it never really resonated with me, and I never really enjoyed it.
Mm.
So but I worked in the hospital for a good amount of time, and then I finally got out of it. It was actually my partner who like was like, you just need to leave the hospital. And so
Mm.
like he kind of like ignited that and gave me like the courage to actually just leave.
Okay.
And so I left that, and I started realizing like, like I coming from that background, I was like, I know what allopathic medicine is like, and it's
Mm-hmm.
not healing at all. It's just,
Mm-hmm.
it just keeps you in there.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's when I started like trying to figure out, like how, because I was like wanted to be really like healthy for my baby, wanted to be really like I was like in the preconception time, because even
Mm-hmm.
though we weren't sure when we were gonna have a baby,
Mm-hmm.
like I still wanted my body to be healthy. And that's when I started learning about like conscious conception and just like
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
making sure that you're getting the right like nutrients. And then it all just became like like little pieces by little pieces started to form, like where I started nourishing myself better and
Yeah.
eating more of the traditional foods and really going like animal based and just
Mhm.
focusing on like like a lot of the raw diet and really just doing a lot of the traditional foods.
Yeah.
And that sparked like a whole new like like passion, like really into like all those things and like learning about all those things. And then that was like a whole year basically from like 2021 to 2022. Like me and my husband were trying to get healthier
Mm.
than we were.
Mm.
And then I started, kind of looking into conception stuff. Like I ended up buying a course about conscious conception and kind of learning there and starting to order some of the lab work to see like where I'm like my body was. I think the first time that I heard about free birthing, I want to say was on, when somebody's Instagram, they had like
Mm.
posted that they were gonna free birth, and I was like, what is that? And
Mm. Same.
I remember like, I started looking into like the home births and like I was like, oh, I would love that. Like I don't know why it resonated so much with me, but I was like, I would love to like give birth at home. And
Mm-hmm.
this was like before I got pregnant. So I was already like in this thing. And
Mm.
those like holistic bundles that they sell every now and then.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think I had purchased one of those, and one of them had like a wild pregnancy little PDF. So I had gone through
Okay.
it and I was like, oh, this is so cool. Like it's like I don't know, like it just felt like so like empowering to be able to do something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I was actually still working as a PA, but I started doing what's called like telemedicine.
Okay.
And this one time, this like one of the people that came on, they were actually a midwife. And so I found her on Instagram. So I was looking through like her stuff, and it was cool because it was like she was still licensed, but they offered like really an alternative like prenatals. Like
Oh
they
yeah.
had like these really cool like concepts of like, you know, they, there was a team base, and it was like acupuncture. They do acupuncture, and
Mm.
it was at home, and they were talking about like the yoni steam, and all this stuff was really really new to me. So I was like, oh, that's
Mm-hmm.
so cool. Like I would love like a birth team like that. And
Mm.
I wasn't even pregnant at the time. And then and so then all these things were like coming, and everything was kind of becoming true, and like everything was kind of like manifesting its way, like in
Uh-huh.
and then like like it was 2021, no,
Mm.
2022. Yeah, it was 2022. And finally, one week I was just really sick, and I was like, what the heck is going on? What's wrong with me? Like I thought I was sick because I had been sick for like a month before that. Like thought it was like parasites and like weird
Mm.
stuff. And then I was going through like all these emotions this one week, and everything was just weird. And the crazy thing was like it never came across that like that to think that I was pregnant, because it's not like we were like consciously trying to conceive.
Mm-hmm.
And so then just one morning, I remember I was like laying in bed, and I was like, why do I feel like this? And it
Mm-hmm.
was like the first time that like something supernatural happened. Because I remember hearing a voice, and the voice was like, you're pregnant and it's a girl.
Oh
And
wow.
I was like, kind of just I heard that voice, and I was like, nah. I like got out of bed, and like and I went to the bathroom and immediately like threw up, and I was like,
Mm.
oh, this is real. Like it's real. And so yeah, so at that point I was like, oh well, good thing I've been doing all these things, because it's
Mm-hmm.
gonna happen now. Like it's real. So it just
Mm-hmm.
became like a huge reality. And I was like, and I was already like, I was like, oh, I'm gonna reach out to that midwife that I had found, and I want to like interview them and see how it goes. But I wanted to have like other options, because at the time now I was like really into like the free birth, but I had heard about like, that there was like free birth keepers and things like that
Mm-hmm.
that could like
Mm-hmm.
hold the space. And I was like, I couldn't decide like, did I want to go like the traditional like allopathic, or did I want to, really go in like
Mhm.
with this free birth?
Yeah.
And I remember I had spoken with a traditional midwife who is not licensed. And so I was thinking like, oh, like this is the one, this is the person, like I definitely want to go with her because I want to do things not allopathic.
Hmm.
But for some reason I just like couldn't, like I wasn't at peace with the decision. And I was like, I don't understand, like she like lines up, everything lines up, I'm like, why am I feeling this way? And I just couldn't brush it off. And
Hmm.
I was like, this is like the time where I was like, I really need to like trust my intuition. And I think that was like a big thing of me for like all my life. Cause I was like, I've never actually like, I don't even know what that means. Like
Hmm.
the biggest step for me was like marrying my spouse. Cause at the time I was like, I don't know if I want to marry you, but I'm just going to take this leap of faith and hope for the
Yeah.
best. Cause I'm like, I was still like, my mind was still like a little crazy. So
Yeah.
I was like, I'm just gonna take this leap of faith. So
Mhm.
I'm like, whatever. And then I came across somebody else who was a doula, but she had done the radical birth keeper like through the Free Birth Society.
Mhm.
So I was like, let me reach out to her. And so I ended up meeting her one day for like a session. She does cranial sacral.
Mhm.
So I told her, I was like, I'm having so much anxiety, like I don't know why, it's like crazy. And she's like, well, come in, we'll like talk.
Mhm.
And so she told me to, like find out like what my birth story was and everything, and to come
Mhm.
in. And so like her healing modality is really cool because what she does is she helps with like heal birth trauma, like your own personal birth trauma, like the
Right.
imprinting.
Oh, wow. That's
Um,
amazing.
yeah, so it was really, really cool because I didn't like, I was like, I never knew my birth story up until then. I talked to my mom about my birth story. It was, a lot of intervention. Even though it was at a private hospital, it was a lot of intervention. And
Mhm.
so going through with heal so then basically I started healing my own birth trauma because
Mhm.
my doula said, like a lot of this stuff, like anytime like there's a new birth that presents itself, whether it's like and anything in life that's like new birth, so like
Mhm.
getting married, moving, anything that's like a change, like a new birth, like
Mhm.
the way that whatever imprinted at your birth like is going to always show up in some way.
Mhm.
And so the best way to do is like heal that imprinting so that things kind of tend to shift in a more, in a kind of the outcomes that you want, as opposed to like
Yeah.
these patterns that keep showing up.
That makes perfect
And
sense.
yeah, so it was really cool. So I really enjoyed the session. And I remember she had mentioned something where she said, I think like I think like the person that you want to hold your space is not so much of a mother figure, is more, I think you want more of like a sisterly figure. And when she
Mhm.
said that, like it really resonated with me because I was like, I think she's right. Because I think like I want to be in control. Like I don't want, like I want to, but I want to be surrounded by somebody that's going to really support me, where I feel like they're like holding my hand, but not like,
Mhm.
this is where we're going,
Yeah, totally.
So I remember after that session, like I felt amazing. I was like, yeah, she's awesome. I want to go with her. Like it's
Mhm.
cool. Like I think I found a person.
Mhm.
And so I ended up doing signing up, and she had, so all her prenatals were just like cranial sacral therapy, where we would have one-on-one sessions, and every time we would kind of something would come up from either like my birth story or from like we did a lot of inner child work. So
Mhm.
a lot of it was really, really cool because it was really healing, and I think it was definitely helping me like clear any fears that would come up at birth.
Mhm.
And so it was for me, it was honestly like really life changing because it was like, I really, and the greatest part was she also had like a women's circle that she held every month, so like I attended those as part of the package.
Right.
So not only was it one-on-one, but then I also got to be with a community of women who,
Yeah.
everybody was, maybe not everybody was like pregnant or things like that. Everybody was at different stages, but like I said, because we work so much with healing the birth to heal any new chapters in life, like it
Yeah.
was still really cool to see like where other people were at in healing
Yes.
their own birth story and how it was impacting their personal lives at the time.
Yeah. Can
So
I just say quickly, I want to cut you off because this is so amazing to hear all of the work that you did even before getting pregnant. How you said you were, changing your diet, eating more ancestrally, getting more of a meat-based diet, you and your partner doing these things, and then coming into pregnancy and then reaching out to this woman and doing all of this childhood work on yourself and going to these beautiful women's circles with women in different stages of life than your own. That's so beautiful, and that is it. That is what women are meant to be doing as they're moving into their conception years, is starting to bring all that really big nutrients into their body so that they can hold this child in their womb as they're growing. And then women need to be hanging out with other women that are mothers, that are postpartum, that are trying to conceive, that are pregnant, that are on the bridge of almost birthing their babies. So it's just so beautiful to hear you share this story, and you already have done so much work within your preconception pregnancy time, and it's just really rare to hear this, especially from a first time mother, of doing this much work going into her first pregnancy, where usually it's like the woman does this the second time around because she's like, oh, the first pregnancy, I had no idea what to do. I didn't have any support. I didn't have friends. I didn't do any of this and that. So, they're trying to make up for it with the second baby. So I just want to acknowledge how like proud of you I am that you did this work so diligently to bring this child into the world and to do this for yourself, this inner child healing. So I just want to express how amazing that is. And for all the first time mothers out there, like, really hear Karen's words and like follow her example of really doing the work before pregnancy, 1 2 3 years before you even get pregnant, and then into the pregnancy journey, because it's so vital and important. And I'm imagining how the actual birthing process of the story is going to go, and I can just already kind of see how the work that you've done before your birth happened to what the experience of your birth is going to be, how they are both definitely linked together. So sorry, I'll let you continue, but
yeah,
I
no,
just
absolutely,
I
absolutely.
just
And
had to express that because it's
it's
just so
actually really funny
wonderful.
that you like bring that up because like, I was like learning all this stuff and like because I'm coming from the allopathic, so I'm like you guys can't trick me. Like there's no
Yeah.
truth there because I know how it works.
Yeah.
And I remember I had to go to like I had to go to a pregnancy clinic to get a letter of pregnancy for, like the birth certificates and stuff. And I remember
Hmm.
like the midwife there was asking me a bunch of questions. And I was like, oh yeah, I think I'm gonna have home birth. And her comment was, oh, that's so dangerous as your first one. Like you don't want to do like a home birth as your first pregnancy. Like
Oh
definitely I
God.
would definitely birth in the hospital for your first one and then, maybe your second one. And I was like, yeah, not gonna happen.
Yeah, no
It's not
way.
gonna happen.
Gosh. That's terrible advice for that's terrible advice. No,
Yeah,
don't leave
yeah.
your first in the
And
hospital.
so I was like, no, I was like, that's just like you're just asking for like to learn all the things that you should learn before you enter all this stuff because you're
Hmm.
just saving yourself from a lot of heartache potentially. Some people are really
Totally.
lucky, but a lot of people it's sad, what everybody has to go through.
Yeah, totally.
So yeah, but yeah, so yeah, I mean the whole prenatals it was just fun, it was just a lot of fun, because I was like
Hmm.
first of all I love psychology, so I was like I really loved doing the inner child work with a person because I felt like in 2019 when I had like my mental breakdown, I did everything kind of by myself. So it was
Yeah.
really cool to have somebody like validate all the stuff that I had done back then and now have somebody validate it um and even go even further into um like even further work and really heal like from all the things because there was things that obviously came up during all these sessions, so
Hmm.
it was really cool. And yeah, and then I was thinking of like of, like I was like trying to envision like how I would want my birth to go, because that was something that we always talked about, is like what do you envision, like
Mm.
what's your vision for it. And something that I recently heard is people talk so much about like real like putting like what you want into like dreams or like visions and all that stuff, and it really helps like set
Mm-hmm.
those goals like
Mm-hmm.
mind. And obviously there was a lot of things, because I was learning a lot about free birth, because it was still really new to me. So like during my pregnancy, I actually took like the free birth society course, so I could learn more and everything. And so I felt like I could feel really confident in everything. And then I remember I was just like I would pray, because I'm like I believe in God, so I would
Mm-hmm.
pray. And I would just say like, I didn't want like specific things, that I wanted what was going to get me to what I wanted my outcome, but I didn't
Mm-hmm.
want anything like any exterior things to affect the outcome. So, I was like praying like, let this, like please like don't have my placenta be like, not covering like my cervix, that was like my biggest
Yeah.
fear. And I was like, and then I was like, everybody talks about like the different like breach, everybody's like terrified. So I was like, I'm not afraid, but I was like, please just have this baby like be in its adequate position for it to be birthed at
Mm-hmm.
home.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, I was just I was very it was a time of so much surrender, because I would just pray all the things that I was worried about. And so I feel like that really helped me with my connection with God even further, because
Mm-hmm.
it was a time where I really had to just like fully surrender to like him, because I was like, this is the outcome that I want. Like, please
Mm-hmm.
make it happen,
Mm-hmm.
And then I would talk to my baby and be like, like I would be like, I trust you, like, and so I really had to trust, and it was crazy, because it was like I had to trust somebody that I didn't know. And so
Mm-hmm.
like
Yeah.
always having to talk to my baby about like the things, as I had this outcome, and I was like, this is what I want. And I didn't really tell a lot of people that I was pregnant, because I really wanted to first get through the birth and be like, I did it. It was like
Yeah.
more empowering than like, than having it and then like having like negative feedback, or like out
Mm-hmm.
exterior sources like telling you stuff. So I was just like very quiet like for my whole pregnancy, because I really wanted to protect like my pregnancy, the baby, like
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to have anybody say anything. So I just felt like my pregnancy was so peaceful and relaxing, and just like it was just like a really nice time, because like again, like there was not a lot of like exterior sources to really
Yeah.
affect like any of the outcome.
Mm-hmm.
um and I wasn't really working that much, so everything was like really chill. Like a lot of times my husband would just come home and I would be like napping, and he's like, he's like, that's the life, right? That's the life. And I was like, yeah, it really
I love that.
is. But yeah, so that was kind of, it was everything. Like I said, my pregnancy experience was really awesome. I feel like like I didn't really have any issues or anything like while I was pregnant, thank God. So everything was
Mm-hmm.
really great in that aspect. And then yeah, so then I guess we can talk about the birth itself. So
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking like, I was like, I know the baby's gonna come like during its time, but everybody kept telling me like, oh, you have longer menstrual cycles, so the baby might cook longer. And I was like, oh, okay. So I was thinking like, oh, I still have like a few weeks, and like I think I was like
Wait,
30, I was like,
people were saying just because your menstrual cycles were long, it would equate to you having a longer like gestational period.
they said potentially it could. This was coming from somebody else that I had spoken to, because they're like, when I was doing the interviews for like what
Right.
you wanted, and they're
But like a midwife was saying that?
yeah, they're like,
That's I've never heard that before. That's
really.
so weird.
So
Yeah.
that was like in my head since the beginning. So I was like, oh, like I'm probably gonna go like 42 weeks. I'm not gonna like even worry about like when I get to the 38-week mark and be like, hey, look,
Mm-hmm.
this baby, like I was like preparing for like a 42-week baby.
Right.
And so I was like, at the time I was like, I was like, oh, I'm gonna do a photo session at the desert, and I'm like, I'm still planning on this photo session and like
Mm-hmm.
all these things. And I wasn't really even having any, I didn't have any signs like at all like of pregnancy really until like um so everything kind of started one morning. I woke up and I was having like period like cramps, and I was like, is this it? Like, is this happening now? Like, I'm like, and I was like, maybe it's just in my head. And I like remember like laying there in bed, like, okay, like there's definitely cramping going on. Like, I definitely feel something. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, maybe I should like time them, I guess. And
Mm-hmm.
so I was like, yeah, they kind of have a pattern. I was like thinking like there's definitely a pattern there. And I was like, I don't think I'm gonna tell anybody yet though, because I feel like this is not like happening right away. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember thinking like, yeah, I'm not gonna tell my husband because then he would just come right home, and I don't want him to come right home. Like, we
Mm-hmm.
still need money. So I wanted him to keep working. And then like I was like, then I went to the bathroom and I definitely had like some bloody show. So I was
Mm-hmm.
like, I remember feeling like, okay, yeah, I think it's actually coming. Like, I think it's actually happening. And so I had texted my doula, and she's like, okay, well, just let me know, like, if you want me to come. And I was like, no, like, I'm totally chill. Like, I'm cool. Like, I was like, I'm gonna take a nap. And she was like, you should tell your husband though. And I was like, should I? And I was like, okay, fine. And like, it's funny because I texted him and I was like, so he used to drive like do delivery. So I just like wanted to know if he was close or if he was like
Mm-hmm.
out doing delivery. So I had texted him and I was like, are you at the warehouse or are you like doing deliveries? And he was like, why? And he like already knew. I was like, I
Yeah.
don't want you to come home. Like, I think like I just want you to be close. And he's like, no,
Mm.
no, I'm coming home. So I was like I know him. So I was like, yeah, he's gonna come. Like, I already knew. He's like, so like, that's his personality. So
Mhm.
he left and came, which was kind of nice because I was like kind of getting a little like scared. So I was like, oh my gosh, this is happening. It's like
Mm.
so crazy that it's like, it's like the moment I've been preparing for like the last like month, like 9 months. So I was like, this is
Yeah.
like I was getting like kind of emotional. So I was like,
Mhm.
I'm really glad that he came. And I remember I was just kind of like, I'm just gonna sleep. And everything was just really chill that day. And then I was like at night time, because this had gone on all day, I was just
Mhm.
kind of like having like things here and there. And I was like, I don't think like it's gonna happen today. It's pretty quiet. And I remember like around 10 p.m. at night, like everything just kind of like stalled, like everything just stopped.
Mm.
And I was like, this is kind of weird. But I do remember like that day that there was like, I was feeling a little bit overwhelmed because I had established boundaries like with my family like
Mhm.
before. Like I kept talking about it like for a while because I still live with my family. So I was like establishing these boundaries like prior. But I
Mm.
felt that day like those boundaries were kind of being a little bit stepped on, and I was feeling a little bit overwhelmed. So I was like, I think my body was like, let's stop. Like, let's
Mhm.
just take a second. And like, I was like, that night, I was like, why did it stop? Like, did I do something wrong? Like, oh my God,
Mm.
did I not put my Like, I was like so stressed that I didn't like, that I was like, I ruined it because I didn't like set my boundaries that day. And I was like, I ruined it. And I was like, I was just laying in bed, remember, like, oh, I didn't set my boundaries, and I was feeling like so upset because I think that's one of the things that's always been really hard for me is like to
Okay.
set boundaries. So that was like something that I had to learn, like
Mm.
throughout my pregnancy, because I was like, I really didn't want to like sabotage my birth,
Yeah.
and so I remember that night I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go to sleep because there's no point in like ruminating about whether I sabotage this or not, and so I ended up going to sleep. And like at 1 a.m. like I got hit with a contraction. It was like
Mm.
boom, it like just woke me up. And I remember I was like, oh my God. And I was like, I need to go sit on the birthing ball. And so I was like sitting on the birthing ball because the it was so strong. And I was like, I need to just sit here and like move.
Mm.
And I remember I told my husband, I was like, okay, I was like, that actually really hurt. I'm like, I think something's happening. And he just like kept sleeping. And I was like, okay, I'm just gonna like I'm just gonna ignore it and I'm gonna like continue doing my thing here.
Yeah.
And I remember I was like on the ball and then I just kept going back to the ball and the toilet and I was like, okay, these are the two places where I feel really good. But I
Mm.
was actually really tired too still because it was like still one, it was only like 1 in the morning. So I was like, I just want to go back and lay down in bed.
Yeah.
And I tried and I just like could not lay down. It was so
Mm.
painful. Like laying down was like not gonna happen. And I remember like I was Googling like comfortable laying down positions like when you're in birth and you can't and you feel uncomfortable. And I was like the only one that came up was like the yoga, like the child's pose.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
But even then, like every time the contractions came, I was like, nope, I can't be in this bed. Like it's not happening. And I remember I was like
Mm.
on the yoga ball and I was getting annoyed with my husband and I think it was like 3:30 in the morning by then. And I was like, call Dana, like my doula. And I was like,
Mm.
call her. And cause I was like, I need somebody here. Cause if you're going to be sleeping, like I need her to be here. And so then he woke up and he's like, what do you need me to do? I was like, I don't know. I was like, maybe fill the tub. Cause I had I had a birthing tub or whatever, just in case. And I was like, I think I'm going to need it just to help me relax because I'm like I can't lay on the bed.
Mm. Yeah.
And so he started filling up the water. And I remember everything just felt like everything was just really tranquil and peaceful though, because it was nighttime and everybody was asleep still. And the room was just like really comfy because it was like winter. So we had the heater going and even my doula was like everything felt like a dream. Like I showed up and it just felt like very dreamlike. And when she came, I was already in the pool and I was like, I feel really good right now. Like this feels nice. Like I feel good. And she's like, okay, good. And I just remember like I was getting a contraction. I'm like, yeah, I'm getting a contraction. She's like, okay. And I was like, and it's gone. Okay, it feels good. And I just remember I was
Mm.
like, I was talking her through what I was feeling for a while. And I was like, yeah, okay, I feel good. And everything just seemed really chill. And I was in the tub by myself. And I remember I told her like, during which we would talk a lot, like what she wanted, what I wanted, she asked me a lot, like, what do you want me to do for you? Like, while like, you're giving labor. And I'm like, I don't know, I guess just be there. I was like, I feel like if I want to be alone, like I'm gonna go into the bathroom. So that's
Mm.
gonna be like if I want to be alone. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, I don't know if I'm really gonna want any kind of like physical contact. Like I think I just need I was like, I think if anything, I just need you to help me with like helping me with the breathing because I was like, I feel like
Mm.
if I'm gonna have pain, like I want to try to keep it in that low tone, but I feel like I'm gonna like start getting into the highs. And so I'm like, if you can
Mm.
just help me like, maintain my breathing like during the stuff, like she's
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah. And so I remember it was just, everything was really chill. Like my husband was like sitting in a chair. She was like laying on my bed. I'm just sitting in the tub, like laboring for
Mm.
a few hours and everything just kind of felt really nice. I had like a Christian hypnobirthing thing
Mm.
on. So that was really helping me get through a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the stuff. And then at one point I was like, I have to pee so bad. And I remember I went to the bathroom and my doula goes back, like when we were talking about it, like later, she's like, I didn't bother you because you're like, if you go in the bathroom, like you told me not to bother you. I'm like, no, it's okay. And she's
Mm-hmm.
like, okay. And I was like, so I was in there and I was actually standing in the bathroom for a while. And I was like, for some reason, like standing feels better. And I was like, this feels good. This feels good.
Mm.
Like, I think I should labor standing.
Mm.
And but then I remember like I was like, it feels good, but then I got really weak. Like I felt like really weak. Like I felt like I was almost gonna faint.
Mm.
So I got scared. I was like, oh no, like I don't want to feel weak. Like I don't want to faint because because one of my biggest fears was like a transfer. I was like,
Oh
I
yeah.
do not want to
Mhm.
transfer. That was like my biggest fears that we had to work through, like
Yeah.
through my prenatals, like was the transfer. Because I was like so afraid of like failure to progress and like so I
Mm.
was like when I felt that weakness I got scared. I was like no, like I need to go back and sit down and like get in
Mm.
the pool. And at the time, and it was like funny because I like I learned these things about myself like while I'm in labor because I'm like And we talk about it with my doula and my husband. I was like, the whole time I was like, I don't want to bother them. Like that was like my mind was like, I don't want to bother them with like, hey, can you get me food? Like, hey, can you do this for me? Like, I learned that about myself where like I still struggle with like voicing like what I want because I feel like I'm just like a burden almost.
Yeah, I
So
hear that from a
that thing
lot
that
of
came
women.
yeah, so like that
Mhm.
came up like during the birthing process was like I just felt like I didn't like it was hard for me to voice my needs because I was like I don't want to like I was like they're tired, like I feel bad. And I'm like I'm the
Mhm.
one like in labor.
Mhm.
So yeah, so I remember I was just like telling my husband I was like can you get me like some yogurt and like some coconut water and so I like had some food. I felt like a lot better.
Mhm.
And then, I was just like laboring in the pool and every time like I was just trying to surrender. Like I was like, I had read one of the books at Birthing from Within and so I was just trying to really like hone into like my body and like kind of feeling like where it needed to move, how it needed to move through the
Mhm.
contractions.
Mhm.
And so every time a contraction came, like I would just try to like move my body in whichever way would make me feel like I'm moving through it.
Yeah.
And then at one point, everything just like was like, I don't know, like everything just kind of felt like a blur at one point because I was starting to feel like the pain was just getting so intense. And I was just like, I remember I was like looking at my husband like help me like I was like in
Mhm.
so but I was like I don't know what to do like I was like freaking out. I was starting to freak out a little bit and I was like saying how like the pain was really unbearable and I was like oh my gosh like it's so painful and I was like freaking out and like my mind started going to like really dark places like
Yeah.
all the negative thoughts that were coming in and I was like, oh my gosh. And I think and it's funny because like now when I go back and think about it, I know where that happened was because I had the hypnobirthing track on
Mhm.
and then my phone died. And so it stopped. And so then
Uh,
when that went away, I felt like everything became super like intense.
okay, yeah.
And again, like I was so like I didn't want to like bother people to be like, hey, charge my phone and like put my birthing track back on. So
Mm.
I just like went with it without it for a while, but that's when I was like losing my shit. Like I was
Okay,
like, I was like,
yeah.
oh my, I started screaming. I was like screaming. I was like, this is terrible. And I was like in so much pain and I was like, make
Mhm.
it stop. It was like so bad. And yeah, I was trying to keep my cool because I was like, I'm still trying to like move through the contractions and everything. But
Mhm.
I was like, oh my gosh, like I remember like I was in so much pain. I just wanted it to I mean, it was so vulnerable. I was like, that's the most vulnerable I've ever been in my life. Like I was just
Totally,
screaming for
yeah.
it to stop and, like just crying. And I think at one point, um, I felt like, like my doula asked me if I wanted to like feel like if there was anything down there like progressing. And I was like, no, no, I
Mhm.
don't want to like know anything. I was like, I don't want to know. Like,
Yeah.
let's just keep going, but I don't want to know. And I was like, I feel like if I touch and it's like I don't feel anything, I'm gonna freak out. She's like, okay.
Right.
It's like, okay. I was like, yeah, I'm not doing it. But I think at one point, like they almost were like, I think at one point they said like, like, oh, we see something. So I was like, okay, I was like, good, it's coming. Like, they said that they saw the head, and I was like, oh, I was like, thank God it's almost over. And so I was like, I felt like that last contraction, like before they said that, I was like, okay, like this is it, this is it. And I
Mhm.
think something just totally freaked me out. And so like
Mhm.
everything like stalled again. And it was just like,
Mhm.
but it was like the stall that I needed because
Yeah.
everything just stopped. And I swear in that moment, it was like such a beautiful moment because I still remembered it was like everything had stopped. Like it was so quiet in the room. Like the sun was coming out, like you could see it from the window. And like I was just laying in the water, like peacefully, like laying back, like, oh, this is what I need. Like I just want to sleep.
Oh.
And like my doula came over and like started like massaging my head and I swear it felt like an eternity. Like I don't know how long that was, but it was like exactly what I needed at the moment.
Yeah.
And then like as soon as like that was over, like I got hit with like a contraction that was so painful. I remember I was like, no, no. I was fighting it. I was like, no, I don't want it. I don't want
Mm,
it. It was like so painful. And like, I was like, but at that moment I was like ready. I was like thinking,
mm,
because I'm like a very logical person.
yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, if I go to the hospital, like, I just want to have a C-section. Like, I don't want them to touch me. Like, I'm like, but then I
Mm.
was like, the only thing that kept me from like wanting to go to the hospital for a C-section was like, if my baby's not born vaginally, like, she's not going to get the microbiome that I want her to have. And I'm like,
Yeah.
like that is what kept me going. Like, that is like the only thing that I was thinking of. I was like, no, no, she has to have like the microbiome. Like, I was like so set on that.
Yeah.
That was like my reason for to keep going, really, because I was like,
Mhm.
I don't want her to be born sterile like that. And so I was like, that was like what kept me going. And I remember
Mhm.
like at that point I was like looking at them and I was like, y'all, I don't know, like I was like, I feel like something, I'm like, I just feel like we're not progressing, like something is not happening, because like even like the entire time when I was laboring, like, and like this had been like hours, like
Mhm.
I was still feeling like something up in my ribs. So
Mhm.
I'm like, either she's just like not descending down, or like I'm like, I just feel something in my rib cage. Like
Mhm.
I'm like, why am I still feeling that? Like I was so like fixated on the fact that there was still something there, where I was like, is
Mhm.
she just not down? Like is she just not engaged? Like what's going on?
Mhm.
And so yeah, so like I just kept looking at them, and like I was like looking at my husband, and I was like, he's like, what do you want to do? And I was like, nothing, there's nothing to do. Like there's nothing to do. Like I just have to like keep going at it. And like I actually had like on backup, I had a this girl that I met who's a non-traditional midwife who like is kind of trained in like emergency stuff. And so like we and her had talked a little bit, and there was things that I was like, oh, I don't really like want these things, so I didn't really want to be like a big part of it, but I did want her to have access to her if I needed to talk to her during the labor,
Right.
if I
Okay.
felt like I needed her. And something in me was like, call Brittany. And so I was like, but then I was at the time, I was like, I feel bad, like if I tell like my doula to call Brittany, like she's gonna feel bad like that I'm
Mm.
calling my like backup. And so but I got to a point where I was like, call Brittany. And then like they called her and she didn't answer for like 2 hours. And so I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna die. And finally she called back and she's like, okay, like where are we at? What's going on? And like my doula was talking to her and she's like, yeah, she's like, she just keeps saying like she feels like there's no progress. Like that's what she keeps saying. And so she was like, okay, like where is she giving labor? And she's like, she's in a tub. So she's like, okay, like let's get her out of the pool, because something I didn't know about, like the buoyancy of the water can like affect like the baby from like progressing. Is that something that you're familiar with?
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah, the warmth of
Yeah.
the water and all that can sometimes slow
Yeah.
the birth process
Like I
down.
don't know if it has to do with like the leveling of the water though. Like if there's a certain, like if the water has to be at a certain level, like if it has to be above you or like below you in order to help progress. Because I guess like the buoyancy
Uh,
of it or something is what
okay.
can prevent like the baby from actually like coming out. Because like I said, like at some point, like my husband and my doula both had seen the head, and then I felt like she just like got sucked back up or something.
Right.
And because I was like, what are you guys talking about? Like, you guys saw her head and now nothing's happening, like I'm confused.
Right. Well, could it
And
have been your
so,
water bags as well? Because sometimes the water bag can come down and exit the opening of the vulva, and it looks like a head at first if you're not quite sure what you're looking for it, because it's kind of,
okay.
it's round and shiny, and then if it does get pulled back up. So I don't
Oh,
know. Obviously, I wasn't there, didn't see it,
yeah.
but that it could have been the baby's head, or it might have been your water bags just kind of slowly descending and
Okay. That's
going back
actually
up.
interesting that you bring it up, because it could have been. I always wondered, because I was like, I didn't see anything. So I was like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, it could have been. So that's another interesting point.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so so she told them to get me out of the pool. And like I said, going back to it when I had gotten out of the pool like initially, and I was like, oh, it feels good to labor standing. Like I should have just like listened to my intuition at that point, because I did feel good, but I was like
Mm.
ended up going back in the pool because I felt weak. So that's really like the only reason I went back in.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so from the time like they told me to go ahead and get out of the pool,
Mm.
and they're like, where do you want to go? Like they're like, do you want to go in the bed? And I was like, no,
Mm.
absolutely not. Like I know I don't want to go there. And then they're like, how about the shower? And I was like, okay, I'll do the shower, which is really funny because like maybe a month before, like my doula had come over to check out the space,
Mm-hmm.
and I had shown her the bathroom. I was like, I feel like things are gonna happen in here. Like I remember saying that, and
Okay.
then like sure enough, I was like, yeah, put me in the shower. And so I was standing in the shower. I remember they were like putting the water like on over my back because I was having really bad back pain at that
Mm.
point. And yeah, things progressed really fast. Like from that moment, I
Mm.
was like feeling a lot of pain in my pelvis. And I remember like it felt like it literally felt like bone crushing pain, where I was like, I felt like something was like crushing my pelvis.
Oh yeah, okay.
And I was like, I remember I was like, they put the yoga ball in there for me to like hold it, and I just like kept hitting it. I was like cussing at the ball. I was like, I was like hating. I was like that ball. I was like, I need to take it out on something.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just felt like the need to just squat. I was like, I'm over it. And I was like, I just like squatted really fast. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
nice because the bathroom has handles. So I grabbed onto the handles and I like squatted down,
Mm-hmm.
and then everything just like came all out at once. I just felt like the gush of waters and an
Yeah.
instant cry.
Wow.
It was amazing. And I just remember like I was like, where is she? And I remember like I had reached like because I was squatted, and like so I reached like from underneath and like just grabbed her like this. And I'll never forget it because like she was like really small, and I had her like my hand was like this. I had her hand, and like she had like actually reached for me as well. Like her hand was reaching.
Oh.
And it was such a it was like it was just like it was amazing. That emergence was like
Mm.
so incredible because I squatted. She practically birthed herself because no one caught her. She just landed in some towels, like in the shower.
Yeah.
And I reached for her and grabbed her and like brought her to my chest.
Oh gosh, that's so
Um, and
beautiful.
yeah, it was the emergence was amazing because I remember like both my husband and my doula Dana, like they both like were like crying together. And like
Mm-hmm.
and I was just holding her, and it was just the emergence was like amazing. It was like, and then of course like I sat down and I was holding her, and then like instantly in my mind was like, that wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
That was like what my mind was. I was like okay.
Oh, love
But yeah,
that.
it was amazing. It was really great.
Hmm.
And it
Wow.
was funny because I actually didn't know the sex the entire time, but obviously like from the beginning, like I had heard that voice. So
Yeah.
like I was 99% sure that it was going to be a girl. And I was like, if it's true, like, you know, that voice came from God. So
Hmm.
like I know. And
Hmm.
then of course, like that was like my instant was like, is it a girl? And it's like, yes. And I was like, it was
Oh.
God.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
Yeah. So
Wow.
it was great. It was great. I mean, it was, I think, all around like from 1 a.m. until she gave birth, it was 11 hours.
Oh,
And
wow.
you know, there was times where it was pretty rough, but like I said at the end, I was like, yep, not too bad.
Hmm. Um, pardon. How long after your daughter's emergence did your placenta come out?
So it came out like right away actually, because I
Okay.
remember like you know, I sat in the shower for a little bit, like I was holding her, I was trying to rest a little bit.
Mm.
And she's like, let's get you guys on the bed so we can like warm you guys up, and you know, you can have your golden hour.
Mm.
And so I remember I was like, okay, so like I was like trying to stand up, and I do remember the cord was like a little short, so it was like kind of awkward because I was like trying to hold her, but I was like trying not to pull at everything out.
Right,
And as
right.
soon as I stood up, I was like, oh no, it's coming. Like it's
Okay.
coming. And like it just like came right out. And it was funny because like we always joke about like the gloved hands, like you know,
Mm.
when people like are like in the labor and how like annoying it looks, like it kind of like ruins the whole like
Yeah.
thing. And like my doula is the same way. And so she's like, what do I do? She's like, is it okay? And I was like, yeah, it's fine. She just like grabbed with her hand. She was like, she's like, I'm sorry. It's fine. And then we just like it came out right away. And like and then we put it in like a little bucket, and then we came over to the bed and had her like lovely skin to skin. And
Mm.
you know, I you know, it's like so hard, like everything feels like a blur, but I know like she was helping me trying to get her to like latch, and she did latch, and she was able to like breastfeed like at the time, and
Mhm.
everything felt really nice. So like, you know, we did have like our nice little golden hour and everything. So
Yeah.
I was like, you know, I think that was like for me, like was the biggest thing like postpartum was like the whole breastfeeding thing. Cause I
Okay.
was like thinking like, you know, I was like, oh, if I have this like physiological birth, like everything should just come natural, you know? Like it should just be
Right.
natural. And like that's what I thought. But like I actually struggled like after that. Cause like initially when we got her latch, like everything felt great and it, you know, felt really good. And she latched and my doula stayed with me for a few hours to make sure like that I ate, that she ate, and then she left. And then you
Mm.
know like I kind of and then I felt like that night like I had a really hard time like breastfeeding for a few
Mhm.
days. And so like
Yeah.
that was a big challenge for me like postpartum
Mm-hmm.
for sure.
Yeah. And did it get better over time, or did you see, like, did you get more help from your doula when she came back to do checks on you, or did you seek out like a breast, what are they, like the
The
breastfeeding
lactation
consultants?
consultants,
Yeah,
yeah.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, so I like waited a few days because I was like, you know, I was like, I feel like something's kind of off with her breastfeeding, because I'm like, I feel like she's really hungry and she wants to breastfeed. And like, I was having a little bit of pain, and I was like, I don't know what's going on. And
Mm-hmm.
like my intuition was telling me that she was just hungry. And so a friend of mine was like, oh yeah, I know a really good lactation consultant that like is like for like women like us that free birth and stuff like that, so she might be like a good resource.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember like I reached out to her at the time. And like honestly I feel like that was like it was really hard, because I feel like with postpartum, like you know, like that's like it's so hard to like protect like the woman's mind during that time, when like the amygdala is like so like open and like so like ready to receive like anything, any source of like danger. And
Mm-hmm.
like for me, like I felt like that visit like was, even though it was helpful, like I almost like regret it now, because I feel like something that she said like just triggered my amygdala and like just like messed me up for like the next 3 months. So like
Oh
I
no.
felt like my postpartum was very much like it was very dark, because I was just like very like I mean I was just like really sad and like scared, and like it was just really rough. Like I didn't get to enjoy like the first couple of months, because I was just
Oh,
feeling like, you know, it was like the end of the world.
right. Oh,
And
I'm so sorry
so
to hear that.
yeah. So, you know, but like it's like, you know, you like learn. These are I mean, they're all outcomes that you just like learn from, you know. So it was definitely like a good learning experience for me,
Mm-hmm.
just to like, you know, really protect. Like I think like for the next time, like I'll just be like even more protective of like my postpartum space, because I'm
Right.
like, you know, I protected my pregnancy so much. I protected like my birth so much. And then like I felt like the postpartum, like I almost like got sucked back into like the allopathic. I kind of like let me suck it, like almost let it suck
Mm-hmm.
me back in a little bit.
Okay.
And then
Yeah,
it was
I
like
see.
actually like me talking to my doula, where she kind of had to like say like, I think you're like you're regressing a little. And I was like, yeah, you're right. Like, why
Yeah.
am I doing this? Like, you're right. You know, I need to like step back and like just
Mm-hmm.
go back to like those primal instincts and just go
Mm-hmm.
at it from a different angle, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's like things that you learn. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
I'm
It's
I'm
a
glad
learning
that,
experience. So
yeah,
it's good that that can be your takeaway from it.
yeah,
Totally. Wow.
yeah.
Wow. What an amazing, like, what an incredible story that you've had to share through your preconception, your pregnancy, your birth, and going into your postpartum time. And just like so much, I feel like you've probably learned so much about yourself in this whole journey of time that excuse me, this journey of time that it's taken you to like prepare for your motherhood and then step into motherhood. And it's just really amazing to see you doing this in your first go into motherhood, not trying to fix or heal the traumas of the previous birth that you've gone through, but now in your next birth you already have like pregnancy and the birth and the preconception kind of sorted. So like you said, you just want to go back and have more boundaries, have more power for yourself in your postpartum time, and going back, I love how you said, into your primal instincts and really leading with that for the postpartum time as well. That's, yeah, I mean, this is how we are meant to birth. Like this is the perfect, a beautiful blueprint of how we as women are meant to go about throughout this whole primal continuum of pregnancy to mothering. So it's really beautiful to hear this story and how you're so just like tapped into it, and you really had such a beautiful faith and trust in yourself, and you had that beautiful faith and trust in God and in your partner, and having your doula there to support you. And yeah, it's just like, I love hearing stories like this because this is just what birth is meant to be, and this is how pregnancy and birth and how women are meant to be treated in this time. And yeah, you really got it. So yeah. Thank you for
Thanks.
sharing that. It's just so lovely, and I'm so grateful that's like not just myself gets to hear the story, but so many other women are going to be able to benefit from hearing your words and what you've gone through.
Yeah, thank you for having this platform to share.
Yeah, yeah. It's just, yeah, it's so important that stories like this are heard because, out of everything that you've done for your whole primal continuum, it's all just like normal stuff.
Yeah.
That all the work that you did and preparing for pregnancy and in your pregnancy time, like, is all just normal everyday kind of stuff that we should be doing with ourselves, whether we're pregnant or not. As women, like, all humans should be doing this. And hearing stories like this just really normalizes that. And then it just makes me think of, when I hear of other women talking about their preconception pregnancy journeys of like having to go to the hospital to see their midwives and get checked, twice a month, or having to do this and getting tested for GBS and being coerced into, all of these crazy things, and they haven't even started their birth process yet. It's like, that's not normal to like outsource um our own knowledge, to try and outsource the answers that we can just find within ourselves if we sit in circle with a group of women and just,
Yeah.
speak our fears and speak what we want to create for our birth. Like, that is normal. Going outside of ourselves to get all this testing and crazy stuff and fear, like, that's not the normal. So yeah, thank you for just really highlighting how beautiful and simple that whole journey can really be.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what I try to bring like awareness to like to like women in general, because it's true. It's like, I don't know, like I just get so like caught up when I see like people so like worried about like the like things that don't even matter. Like you brought up like the GBS stuff and like all those things,
Yeah.
and I just see how it creates so much like unnecessary anxiety in people. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, this is a time, like pregnancy is a time to like of like celebration, and for you to be, calm and just be in yourself, and like,
Yeah.
and like I just feel like we put our energy where it shouldn't be.
Exactly. Yeah, totally. Wow. Um, is there anything else that you want to share about your journey of coming into motherhood, your preconception, pregnancy, birth, or postpartum experiences that you've had?
No, I mean, I think, yeah, I mean, I think that's great. I mean, I think like, things that I would definitely do the next time.
Mm-hmm.
One of them being, like one of them being, I would definitely look more into creating like expansion and openness in my body. I feel like that was one of the things that I definitely could have improved, like, creating like more openness in my pelvis, and with just like movement, like I've been really into like primal movements, and
Mm-hmm.
like even doing like bowspring really helps open up like just create expansion in your body in general. So something that I would love to do in the next pregnancy is like to do that, to see if there's like any difference or anything like throughout the pregnancy or even during the birth.
Okay.
Like I said, I like the one thing that stuck with me was like that I kept feeling her like in my rib cage. So
Yeah.
like I go back and I wonder, I'm like, wonder if I were to like create more expansion within myself, like how that would change like for the next pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be like my biggest thing, like during my pregnancy and like during the birth, the birth process. And then I think the postpartum too, like I really would focus more of my energy and even more my investment, like in terms of money, and like really getting like the best like postpartum support I can, because I
Mm-hmm.
feel like I definitely lacked it a little bit, just because I didn't really have a lot of a lot of people in that community, like a lot of community for that part.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be like one of the biggest things was is like changing that, like making sure like like I really invest, and I obviously like I advise like any woman to do the same, because it's such an important time,
Yeah,
and it's a
absolutely.
time like you're just not going to forget it, like
Mm-hmm.
whether it was good or bad.
Yeah,
You're definitely going to
exactly.
remember it. So
Yeah.
at least some parts, because I feel like
Mm-hmm.
there's a little bit of amnesia there, otherwise like I feel like you wouldn't give birth again.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Yeah.
But
Oh.
yeah, that would be like my takeaway, like for future and even just advice in general for like other
Mhm.
women.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's so true. You've got to plan as well, prepare and plan for the pregnancy and birth, but don't forget the postpartum, because that's, the longest journey in motherhood. So you really have to make sure it starts off well.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Karen, for speaking and sharing your words. And if there are women out there that would like to speak to you about the work that you did maybe in preconception and during your pregnancy to really get you prepared for your birth experience, how would women be able to reach out to you?
So I guess through Instagram, uh like see, let me see. I'm really bad at like remembering my handles. But I think it is like her and then underscore era, like her and then underscore like era as in like her era kind of,
Mhm.
and then underscore 13.
Okay, cool. I'll put that in the show notes as well so that they can just click on the link and find you there. Yeah. Oh,
Awesome. Thank
wonderful.
you.
Yeah, and thank you so much for sharing. And I can't wait to get this story out there and have women and people hear it. Thank you, sisters, so much for listening to this episode of the Freebirthing Color podcast. If you'd like to work with me one-on-one in a primal activation session, donate to the podcast, or to have your story featured here or in the blog, go to primalwomanportal.com for all the information to do so. Did you want to connect with our guest speaker? You can find all her information linked within the show notes. And if you have time, please subscribe, write a review, and tell a friend to have a listen so that this podcast and these stories of women birthing in their total power can be shared far and wide. Don't forget to check out the show notes for information on the Earth Daughters Women's Festival, the Breach Without Borders workshop, and much more. New episodes drop every Thursday morning, so stay tuned for the next amazing story to be shared on any platform that you prefer to listen to your podcasts on, or watch these episodes on the Freebirthing in Color YouTube page. And remember, your voice and your story matters. So if you're a woman of color or an Indigenous woman who's had a wild pregnancy and or birth outside of the medical system, submit your story, because it's so important that your voice is heard and celebrated in your radical journey of pregnancy, birth, and motherhood.